Hello, everyone. Thanks, Jason, and thanks, Woody and Slow Money Gang, for gathering us all here. What a fine group we are, aren't we? I'm so excited about my memoir being out. I started it almost 10 years ago and kept telling everybody it was going to be done any day now. So that's called slow writing. But it's finished. And I wanted to start by reading you a passage from the preface. This book is both a love story and a business book. It's about a love of life, nature, animals, community, and unique local culture. A love of good food and family farms, and a love of democracy, all being threatened by a global economic system driven by profit. It's also about a deep love of business and how we can embrace a way of doing business that is beautiful, that nurtures all that we cherish, and that furthers the creation of a whole new economic system based on caring relationships. Though this new economy is global in vision, my story and the story of each of us begins right at home, in our own community, and with our own capacity to recognize and protect what we truly care about. Let's see. Thanks. Oh, I went too fast. How do I go backwards? There we go. All right, so this is how I began to learn how to nurture and to care, as many people do with pets. I learned to care for a voiceless creature that I loved because I began to see myself, in animals and in nature and in other people eventually. And but at the same time, as a young girl growing up in the 50s, I was excluded from things that I loved to do, like baseball, because I was a girl. My favorite hobby was building forts in the woods, but I wasn't allowed to take shot because I was a girl. So I developed contempt for girls. I thought guys did all the cool stuff, and I wanted to be like guys. So I tried to repress my feminine and draw upon my masculine qualities, and a lot of my book is about my evolution. So here's the White Dog Cafe in Philadelphia. This is where the place I chose to live in and raise my family, start my business. And I think that's the first step, really, in a new economy, and is to choose a place and to take responsibility for that place, to care for that place, to build relationships in that place. And I'd lived here and worked here for 40 years. And like the family farm and the family inn, I raised my children in the workplace. It's Grace and Lawrence out in front of the White Dog Cafe. And I was very influenced by living and working in the same community to make business decisions in the best interest of those around me. So rather than leaving my values at home when I go to work, as many business schools teach us, I was at home anyway. So this influenced my life, and so it wasn't one of these things where you practice the golden rule at home and then you go to work and gold rules. But rather the golden rule was really about how I ran my business and my life as much as I could. And living close to people that are affected by your business decisions tends to make one more likely to make decisions from the heart as opposed to just the head. I'll give you a couple examples of that. One was paying the living wage. This is the picture on the right is our dishwasher. This picture, he was on our trip to Havana, so he was at our Cuban sister restaurant helping the dishwasher to wash dishes. But one time in the restaurant, I had heard about the living wage, but I hadn't implemented it. I knew about it intellectually. But then all of a sudden I thought, of course I want Greg, to make a living wage if he works at the White Dog. And so I instituted it because I had a first-hand relationship with him. Another was about my relationship with nature. I heard about climate change. In fact, I had programs on it at the White Dog starting in '98, but yet I wasn't motivated to take action until I heard about, until I went into the woods, a place that I loved, and saw the effects of a drought and got in my heart, in my gut. My gut was started thinking, as Don was saying, about how it was important to sign up for renewable energy, and the White Dog became the first business in Pennsylvania to get 100% of our electricity from renewable sources. Mentoring was another heart-based decision that I made, and I'll read you another passage from the book. In each of these examples, paying a living wage, signing up for renewable energy, and starting a mentoring program, I was motivated to make positive decisions by connecting with my heart. Having firsthand real-life experience with people and places in my own community helped me to do that. But it was not the only factor. After all, there are plenty of examples of acting locally with a closed heart, and on the other hand, making compassionate decisions that affect people and places far away. It's really about Carl Jung's observation: the longest journey we have to take is from the head to the heart. In the business world, that's often a difficult journey. So many messages tell us, don't be a softie. Success comes by keeping a stiff upper lip. This is a lesson boys are traditionally taught from a young age, and women adopt in order to compete successfully in business. As a child growing up in the 1950s, before the time when girls were directed toward careers in the home, outside the home, I had refused to participate in doll playing, cooking, and sewing, which was meant to prepare girls for a life of service and as mothers and wives. A life of service while the guys get to do all the cool stuff? No way. But now as an adult, I found myself embracing the feminine qualities I had once rejected, the qualities of the heart, actually making them part of my business philosophy and even my very definition of the purpose of business. Another challenge I had in the business world was this whole idea that we measure success by continual growth. And we're told that if we don't grow materially, that we're going to go out of business. And so people were always saying, well, how many white dogs are there? Why don't you start another one in New York City? But I finally made the conscious decision that I wanted to just have one place because I would lose what was most important to me, and that's the authentic relationships that I had with my staff, with my customers, with my neighborhood, and with Earth itself. So I found that rather than starting a white dog in someone else's community, I would start a black cat in my own. So I started a local store that next door to the white dog that sold responsible gifts, locally made, fair trade, or made from recycled materials. The best example I know of this is Zingerman's Deli in Ann Arbor, a very successful some people from Ann Arbor out there. Very successful deli. They could have been a national chain, but instead of doing that, they looked to see what does our community need. And they started a creamery to make their own ice cream and cheese, yogurt. They started a bakery. They started a coffee roasting company for fair trade organic coffee. They started a candy company. They started a full-service restaurant and so on. And not only that, but each time they started a new business, they invited their best employees to become partners in that business. So they also created more owners, which is a really important part of building a new economy. So I decided that after I reached a financially sustainable size, I had a 200-seat restaurant, I had 100 employees, including the Black Cat, we grossed about $5 million a year, that I didn't want to grow physically anymore, that I wanted to grow deeper in my own community. So I realized that we don't have to grow physically. We can grow by increasing our knowledge, by expanding our consciousness, by developing our creativity, by deepening our relationships, by building community, and by having more fun. So I started to do things at the White Dog that did increase those things, such as table talks with Michael Pollan or Eric Schlosser or Lester Brown, storytellings to give voice to underrepresented voices, in this case a gay couple and a lesbian couple talking about same-sex marriage. On the right is Sue Ellen Klein, the director of our community programs, who's actually here because she lives in Colorado now. Many tours. There's a tour of a garden at Graterford Prison, an organic garden. Here's a tour of inner city gardens. We had many, many annual traditions, parties. This was our annual Martin Luther King Day dinner, which we had for 26 years. A Freedom Seder. Whoops, that's blurry somehow. Sorry. And we had street parties, Noche Latina, rum and reggae, different traditions that we established that people look forward to each year that were part of our local culture. And this is some slides of my favorite one, our Liberty and Justice for All Ball on the eve of 4th of July, when I did a little skit after we had a buffet dinner of local farm foods. I did a skit called Birth of a Nation. First comes a Revolutionary War guy with his drum. Then I come as a pregnant colonial woman led by my midwife. On my back it says, George Washington's left ear. She helps me into my bed out in the street. She asked the audience, 1, 2, 3, and everyone said, push. Under the covers, I pushed my beach ball down through a secret hole in the bottom of the bed. Then here comes one twin. Here comes another twin. They hop onto one is called Liberty, the other Justice. They hop onto the stage and do a tap dance to Yankee Doodle Dandy. Out comes the Statue of Liberty. We light our sparklers and sing God Bless America. So these are the kind of events that we can have in our own communities. We don't have to spend carbons and dollars to go to exotic places. We can have fun right at home, and many times it's the local businesses that put on the great traditions that are part of local culture. Another thing we did is started an international sister restaurant program to understand the effects of U.S. policy on other people, and studied local food systems and what the issues were in the local economies. And here we are in Vietnam. The program was called Table for, started off for 5 billion please and ended up at 6 billion please, but the idea was that everyone should have a place at the table economically and politically, and everyone should have enough to eat. Here's our sister restaurant in Havana, El Bamboo, in the tropical gardens. And as many of you know, Cuba was successful in being able to grow enough food to feed their population without much use of oil. No pesticides, the whole island is organic. And they've been very successful by planting every little square inch in the city of Havana as well as the countryside. Here's one of our farmers we brought with us to Cuba, comparing notes with an organic farmer in Havana. One of the ways they grew their farm system, their local farm system, so quickly, and it was always based on exports and imports until they lost the support of the Soviet Union and the tightening of the U.S. embargo. But these two fellows had been soldiers, so one of the programs that they used in Havana to speed up the system to a local food system was to train Army officers to become farmers. And that's something that's actually happening in the United States now. Here's a program in Colorado. I think Slow Money funds them. So we need to do more of that, turning swords into plowshares, right? I mean, we need more farmers. Another one of our sister restaurant trips took me to Chiapas, Mexico, and I was very fascinated by understanding why did the Zapatistas have their revolution on the day that NAFTA went into effect on January 1st, 1994. And I discovered that it was because the Mexicans had to give up the part of their constitution that protected indigenous lands from foreign exploitation. And the Zapatistas saw the handwriting on the wall with the trade barriers coming down, that U.S. Corporate farmers subsidized with our tax money through the Farm Bill, would dump cheap corn into Mexico, putting out of business the local farm growers. And that's, of course, exactly what happened, including bringing in GMO corn that's beginning to pollute the native varieties. So the Zapatistas wanted to have local self-reliance in their basic needs. They wanted to be able to grow their corn they've been doing for thousands of years and be self-reliant in food. We helped start a coffee company down there. That's Hal Tauzik, who's a slow money guy, and myself. Hal and I each put in $20,000 to pre-finance the first container. We did that for 2 years, and then finally the cooperative, Zapatista cooperative, was on their own and ended up exporting 15 containers to Europe. But we also helped build the local economy with a local domestic coffee business and a honey business. But the Zapatistas also, beside the local economic self-reliance, they wanted to have their own culture. They didn't want to lose their culture to the global monoculture. They wanted to teach their children in their own language and in their own traditions and values. They wanted to be able to weave their own clothing, as they had been doing for thousands of years, instead of working maquiladoras to make cheap clothing to be shipped to the United States and elsewhere. I started drawing a connection between the farmers that I saw in Mexico being driven off the land, often by violence, by paramilitary forces, with what was happening with our own farmers in Pennsylvania, driven off the fields by policies, by a farm bill that gives all the advantage to large corporate farmers. So I totally agree with the need to change public policy as we build our new economy. And I realized that the cry of the Zapatista was the cry of communities all over the world who had lost their self-reliance to large corporations, who had become dependent on large corporations to deliver them their food, our clothes, our building materials, our energy. And that's when I got the inspiration for starting BALLE, the Business Alliance for Local Living Economies. I really drew the connection also between the Zapatistas' vision of self-reliant local economies with Gandhi's vision for self-reliant local villages. And now BALLE is a network of 30,000 local independent businesses in 80 different communities in Canada and the United States. So back to the white dog, we had been known for a long time for buying from local farmers, which we started in 1986. Here's an inner city farm that's built on an old brown field, growing hydroponic lettuce. I knew about pastured chicken and how important it was, but I didn't know about the factory farming of pigs until the late 90s when I read John Robbins' book, Diet for New America, and heard about the horrendous way that these mother sows are kept in these cages their entire lives. And I just couldn't bear the thought that I thought it was such a violation of nature to treat mothers in this way, that, like they're pieces of a machine in a factory, yet they're mammals like us, like our dogs, that this was a betrayal of our trust as stewards of the farm animals. And I realized that the pork that I was serving at the White Dog must come from the system, as 95% of the pork in this country does. But finally, I just came to the kitchen and said, take all the pork off the menu. The bacon, the ham, the pork chops, that we have to find another humane source, for these goods. There's an Amish farmer out in Lancaster County with a big mother sow and her little babies in the hay. And there's pigs the way they like to be, in pig piles, not in cages. Then I found out about the plight of the cow. I won't go into that. You all know the problems there. Started buying grass-fed beef locally. And finally it came to the point where, and this is Dougie Newbold, she says when she kisses her goat's ears, it makes the cheese better. But I got to the point where I looked at my menu and thought, gee, I've finally done it. We have a humane menu, unless you're a vegan. All the food comes from local farms that respect animals and treat them with kindness. This is going to be our market niche. This is our competitive advantage. We're the only restaurant in Philadelphia that can say this. But then I had my transformational moment when I thought to myself, well, if I really do care about the pigs, and if I really do care about the rural communities that are being destroyed by these factory farms, if I care about the small farmers being driven out by the workers in these horrible slaughterhouses and factory farms, of the environment that's being polluted by the concentration of manure, and the consumers who are eating this meat that's full of hormones and antibiotics, then rather than keeping this as my competitive advantage, that I would share this proprietary information of where I got my stuff from with my competitors. So that's when thank you. That's when I started White Dog Community Enterprises, which Sue Ellen was the chair of, and started putting 20% of my profits into that. Started the Fair Food Project, and it was their first job to go around to the other restaurants in town and give them a list of all the farmers we bought from with their phone numbers and what they offer. And I asked Glenn Brendel, who was bringing us in our 2 pigs a week, would you like to expand your business? He said, yes. I said, what's holding you back? And he said he needed $30,000 to buy refrigerated trucks so that he could deliver to all the restaurants in town. And I loaned him the $30,000, and he bought the truck. This is the Dornstrikes. They are the proprietors of Branch Creek Farm. And Mark, they play a big role in my life. And Mark one time shared this with me, and I want to read this passage, last passage. In applying farmer Mark Dornstrike's theory that successful farming is a balance between the masculine quality of efficiency with the feminine quality of nurturing, the factory farming of animals exemplifies an extreme case of imbalance. Industrial agriculture with its animal factories, as well as large corporate plantations around the globe, and likewise the entire industrial economy, is weighted toward masculine energy, a lot of efficiency and control, even domination, and little nurturing and partnership. Our materialistic culture desensitizes consumers to the suffering that underlies the industrial economy and teaches business people to close their hearts and be guided by a false idea of what it means to be strong, a false idea of the masculine, not as protector, but as exploiter, where efficiency is gained by wringing every last penny from the land, from the farm animals, from the workers, from life itself. Ultimately, industrial agriculture, though highly efficient and profitable, produces food that is inferior to the food produced by Mark and Judy Dornstrike and Paul Willis. Organic and humane farmers across the world master the correct balance of efficiency and nurturing to produce the most nutritious and delicious food in an economically sustainable way, while acting as good stewards of the land and farm animals. And when I made the decision to follow my heart and cooperate rather than compete, I felt as though I had finally come to the point of fully embracing my feminine energy, no longer competing to make it in a man's world, but rather balancing my feminine and masculine qualities to build a new economy, one that is prosperous and strong, yet one where compassion and loving relationships matter more than money. So just one last thought. I didn't cooperate and share because I thought that was the right thing to do. I cooperated and shared because I love the pigs, and I love nature, and I love community. All those things were being threatened. So I discovered that the key to change, to transformational change, is in our hearts, in the hearts of the entrepreneurs, in the hearts of consumers, the hearts of investors, and we need to open our heart and really feel and make decisions from that place. Thank you.